Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman is a groundbreaking international bestseller that explores the way we think and make decisions. The book is divided into three parts, each with a unique focus in a set of chapters that delve into specific topics related to human cognition. Introduction. The introduction lays out the groundwork for the book by introducing readers to the two systems of thinking that Kahneman refers to throughout the book. System 1 is described as fast, intuitive, and emotional, while System 2 is slower, more deliberative, and more logical. The introduction also introduces the key characters of the book, such as the econs and the humans, and explains how they relate to the two systems. Part 1 of two systems. Chapter 1 of the characters of the story introduces the two systems of thinking and their key characteristics, as well as the econs and the humans. Chapter 2, Attention and Effort, explores the role of attention in cognitive processes and the limitations of mental effort. Chapter 3 of The Lazy Controller examines the automatic processes involved in System 1 thinking, including pattern recognition and intuition. Chapter 4, The Associative Machine, explores how the brain forms associations and the role of similarity in categorization. Chapter 5, A Cognitive Ease, discusses the ways in which cognitive processes are influenced by the ease or difficulty of mental tasks. Chapter 6, Norms, Surprises, and Causes, examines how System 1 and System 2 thinking interact and the ways in which they can lead to errors. Chapter 7, A Machine for Jumping to Conclusions, explores the mechanics of how judgments are made, including the role of heuristics. Chapter 8, How Judgments Happen, discusses the process by which we make judgments and the factors that can influence them. Chapter 9, Answering an Easier Question, examines the tendency to answer simpler questions than the ones we are asked and the impact this can have on decision-making. Chapter 10, The Law of Small Numbers, explores the fallacy of small sample sizes and the role of randomness in decision-making. Chapter 11, Anchors, examines the impact of initial values, or anchors, on decision-making. Chapter 12 of The Science of Availability discusses how the availability of information can impact the judgments we make. Part 2, Heuristics and Biases. Chapter 13, Availability, Emotion, and Risk, examines the ways in which emotions and the availability of information can influence our perception of risk. Chapter 14, Tom W.'s Specialty, discusses the dangers of relying on expert judgment and the pitfalls of expertise. Chapter 15, Linda Less's More, examines the conjunction fallacy and the ways in which we make judgments about probability. Chapter 16, Causes Trump Statistics, discusses the role of causality in decision-making and the ways in which it can lead to errors. Chapter 17, Regression to the Mean, explores the tendency for extreme values to return to the average and the ways in which this can impact decision-making. Chapter 18, Taming Intuitive Predictions, examines the reliability of intuition and the ways in which it can be improved. Chapter 19, The Illusion of Understanding, discusses the dangers of relying on incomplete or oversimplified models of the world. Part 3, Overconfidence. Chapter 20, The Illusion of Validity, examines the ways in which we can overestimate our own abilities and the dangers of relying on subjective judgment. Chapter 21, Intuitions Vias Formulas, explores the relative merits of intuitive judgment versus algorithmic decision-making. Chapter 22, Expert Intuition, and Can We Trust It, examines the conditions under which expert intuition can be reliable and the ways in which it can lead to errors. Chapter 23 of The Outside View discusses the importance of taking an external perspective on decision-making and the ways in which this can reduce overconfidence. Chapter 24, The Engine of Capitalism, examines the ways in which markets can be efficient and the role of information in decision-making. Chapter 25 of Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman examines the work of mathematician Daniel Bernoulli and his theory of expected utility. It provides important insights into biases and heuristics that can impact decision-making and offers a critical perspective on Bernoulli's expected utility theory. Part 4, Choices. Chapter 26 of Prospect Theory discusses the ways in which people make decisions based on perceived gains and losses and the impact of framing on decision-making. Chapter 27 of Keeping Score examines the role of reference points and how we evaluate outcomes. Chapter 28 of Reversals explores the ways in which people can make different choices based on the way a problem is presented. Chapter 29 of The Endowment Effect discusses how people value items they own more than items they do not and the ways in which this can impact decision-making. Chapter 30 of Bad Events examines how the anticipation of bad events can impact decision-making and the ways in which we can mitigate this. Chapter 31 of the Fourfold Pattern discusses how we make choices in different contexts and the impact of these choices. Chapter 32 Rare Events explores the ways in which we make decisions in situations where the outcome is uncertain or rare. Part 5 Into Selves. Chapter 33 Experienced Well-being examines the ways in which we experience happiness and the factors that influence our well-being. Chapter 30 For Thinking About Life discusses the ways in which we make meaning of our experiences and how we think about the future. Chapter 35 Into Selves explores the tension between our present and future selves and the ways in which we make decisions that impact our future well-being. Chapter 36 Life as a Story discusses the ways in which we create narratives about our lives and the impact this has on our sense of self. Chapter 37 Experienced Utility examines the ways in which we make decisions based on our past experiences and how these experiences can influence our future decisions. Chapter 38 at the end reflects on the key themes of the book and the implications for decision-making in everyday life. Conclusion of the book wraps up the key themes and lessons from the book. The final chapters explore the marvels and flaws of intuitive thinking, the evils of illusion, and the importance of being no one. The book concludes with a discussion of choices, values, and frames, as well as a reflection on thinking about life. In total, Thinking Fast and Slow has 38 chapters, including the introduction and conclusion. Each part of the book provides a unique perspective on the way we think and make decisions, offering insights that can help us understand and improve our cognitive processes.